This happened a few weeks ago. I work night shifts at a small hospital. It's not fancy. The place is old, with dim lights and a faint smell of disinfectant. I've always liked the quiet routine of the night. On my third shift, I was at the nurse's station when I heard soft murmurs coming from the supply room. At first, I thought it was just another nurse joking around, but the voices kept going. I shook my head and went back to my charts, but the uneasy feeling wouldn't leave me alone. The night after, the whispers returned. They were clearer now, almost like a conversation. I glanced at the supply room, but it was empty. I felt my heart race. I thought maybe I was just tired. I tried to focus on my patients, but something didn't feel right. As the week dragged on, I started seeing other strange things. One night, I caught a glimpse of a figure in the hallway out of the corner of my eye. I turned, but nothing was there. I frowned, thinking I needed more coffee. The chill creeping up my spine was hard to ignore. Then, one evening, I found an empty bed in the ER that had clearly been used. There were no records of a patient. I asked the other nurses, but they were just as confused. My skin prickled. Was it some kind of joke? Was I losing my mind? It made me feel uneasy. The last straw came on a night when I stepped into the dim hallway. I felt a presence, like something was watching me. Suddenly, an empty wheelchair rolled toward me slowly. I backed away, my heart racing. I glanced around, but I was alone. It felt wrong, like the air was thick with something I couldn't see. Finally, on my last shift, I heard those whispers again, right behind me this time. My heart was pounding as I turned around. The hallway was empty. I took a breath, trying to calm myself, but then I heard it, a chilling voice asking, "Why are you here?" I spun around, and again, no one was there. The sense of dread settled deep inside me. I thought about all the strange occurrences, and I knew I had to go. I couldn't explain what happened during those shifts, and I still can't. I left that night. I didn't tell anyone. I just walked out and drove home. I often think back to that place, wondering what was wrong. Was it my imagination? Or something far worse? I still don't know. I just know I want to go back. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. The sun was shining too brightly, cutting through the fog of my sleep. My mind kept replaying the events of the night shift. I wanted to push it all out of my head, but the nagging fear lingered. I decided to phone a friend who worked at another hospital. I needed to talk to someone who could understand. After a few rings, she picked up. "Hey. How was your night?" She chirped, unaware of what I'd experienced. I hesitated, trying to figure out how to explain without sounding crazy. I felt really uneasy, I finally admitted. There were strange things happening. I even heard whispers and saw an empty wheelchair roll by. There was a pause on the other end. "That sounds creepy," she said, the concern in her voice making me feel even more anxious. "Maybe you should take a break. Hospitals can really mess with your head if you're not careful." I agreed. I hung up, but it didn't ease my mind. The unease hadn't just vanished with my shift. I needed to know if it really was just my imagination or if something more sinister was at play. A few days later, I decided to visit the hospital again. I didn't want to go back to work, but I felt drawn to the place. I parked in the lot, heart pounding as I walked inside. The familiar faint smell of disinfectant hit me, but there was also a heavy silence that wrapped around my chest. I headed to the nurse's station, hoping to find someone who might fill me in on any unusual happenings. The staff seemed busy, and I felt invisible as I wandered into the break room. That's when I saw a small group of nurses huddled together, their voices low and tense. I couldn't catch all the details, but I heard snippets about the fourth floor and the patient who vanished. My curiosity piqued. I leaned closer, trying not to be seen, but one nurse caught my eye. She looked at me with a mix of concern and recognition. "Hey, didn't you just work nights?" she asked, her voice steady but wary. I nodded. "I just wanted to know if you've heard anything strange lately." "Like, whispers?" The atmosphere shifted suddenly. Their eyes darted among themselves, and I felt my stomach drop. "You shouldn't be here alone," another nurse said quietly, almost as if she was warning me. "Why?" I pressed, my heart racing again. But they wouldn't answer. Instead, they shuffled out, leaving me standing there. The air seemed heavier, and I felt a chill race down my spine. Whatever was happening, it was worse than I thought. Before I could think twice, I walked straight toward the stairwell. If something was hidden on that fourth floor, I had to know. I climbed the stairs, each step echoing in the empty building. The closer I got, the more a sense of dread washed over me. When I reached the fourth floor, the door creaked open. Dim lights flickered above, and I scanned the hallway. It was eerily quiet. My heart was pounding hard now, but I pushed forward. I felt like I was being pulled into something I couldn't see. Then I spotted a door at the end of the hall, slightly ajar. Something inside me screamed to turn back, but my curiosity got the better of me. I stepped closer, and just as I reached for the handle, I heard it again. "Why are you here?" The voice. It echoed in my head like a haunting memory. My breath froze in my chest as I turned to leave, but the door swung wide open on its own. I stood at a crossroads. What lay behind that door? I had to know. And it was too late to turn back now. I stared at the open door, my heart racing. It felt like a challenge. Part of me wanted to run, to escape the oppressive silence that surrounded me, but the other part pushed me forward. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was dark, save for a flickering overhead light that struggled to stay on. It smelled musty, like old paper and antiseptic. My eyes slowly adjusted, and as I scanned the room, I stopped. There was something in the corner, an old rocking chair. It creaked softly as if it had been disturbed recently. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice shaking. The whispering from earlier danced around my thoughts like a ghost. I strained to hear a reply, but there was nothing. Just silence. I moved cautiously into the room, my feet feeling heavy on the worn floor. Each step echoed, reminding me of how alone I felt. As I approached the chair, I noticed something on the ground, scraps of paper scattered around its feet. I bent down to pick them up. The handwriting was messy, frantic, as if someone had been writing in a hurry. I scanned the notes. They were fragmented thoughts, ramblings about shadows, whispers, and something lurking in the dark. My stomach churned. Was this what the nurses were discussing? Had someone else felt the same unease? Just then, a sound broke the tension, soft laughter. It floated through the air, light and airy like a child's giggle. I whipped around, scanning for the source. Empty. The room was empty. My pulse quickened. I stepped back, ready to flee. But as I turned, the door slammed shut behind me with a loud bang. Panic surged through me. I rushed to the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Let me out. Please." I shouted, my voice shaking. The laughter echoed again, louder this time, mingling with something darker, a raspy whisper that wrapped around me like a cold wind. "Join us," it hissed. I pressed my back against the door, searching for a way out. My heart felt like it was going to explode. Was this all in my head? Had I finally lost it? Then I remembered the notes. Information. Was there something in them that could help me now? I turned back to the scattered papers, frantically reading. "The fourth floor, they take you," I shivered. Eyes scanning the remaining notes, I found a fragmented sentence that caught my breath. "They know your name." My heart sank. Suddenly, everything around me shifted. The laughter turned sinister. Shadows moved along the walls, a dance of shapes that twisted and stretched. I could feel their presence, crawling at the edge of my vision. I was not alone. I needed to escape, but the laughter and the whispering grew louder. I stumbled over the papers, searching for a way out. Desperation clawed at me. It was all too real. Then I felt a cold hand brush against my arm. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. All at once, the door flew open, and a figure stood there, silhouetted against the dim hallway lights. "Come with me," it said, voice echoing like a forgotten memory. I hesitated, but I could sense the darkness closing in on me. I had to choose, face whatever awaited me in the shadows or follow this figure into the unknown. Both paths promised to reveal answers, but at what cost? I took a step forward, drawn to the figure like a moth to a flame. My instincts screamed at me to run, but the desperation for answers was stronger. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure shifted slightly, revealing just enough of its face for me to see shadows pooled in the crevices. "You'll find out soon." "There's no time," it urged, glancing back over its shoulder. The hallway stretched out behind, dark and inviting. The laughter faded, replaced with the distant sound of footsteps. Whatever was lurking in the room seemed to retreat. I felt an overwhelming urge to follow, so I edged toward the door, keeping my eyes locked on the figure. "What is going on here?" I asked, my voice low and trembling. "Follow me." "You have to see," it insisted, gesturing for me to step out. The light in the hallway flickered as I crossed the threshold, casting eerie shadows that twisted against the walls. As we walked, I kept glancing around, half expecting something to leap out. The halls felt alive, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. "The fourth floor," the figure said suddenly. "You need to go there." "Why?" I pressed, trying to make sense of the situation. "What's up there?" The figure paused, and for a moment, I could see pain etched on its features. "Some truths aren't easy to accept. But you need to know why you're here." My mind raced, questions tumbling over one another. What did they mean? Who were they? What truth was so terrible that it required my understanding? Before I could ask more, the figure hurried ahead, leading me toward the stairs. I followed, heart pounding as I climbed each flight. With every step, a foreboding sense grew what awaited at the top. What happened on the fourth floor? My breaths quickened while shadows danced around us, morphing into shapes that seemed to watch. Finally, we reached the fourth floor. The air felt different, heavier. I expected the figure to lead me deeper into the darkness, but they stopped just outside a door marked with peeling paint and flickering numbers. "This is it. You need to go in alone." "Alone?" I echoed nervously. "What's in there?" "You'll understand," the figure said. "Remember, they know your name." With a final glance back, the figure vanished down the stairs, leaving me standing in front of the door. I knotted my fingers into a fist, willing the terror to fade. I reached for the handle and pushed it open, but the door creaked ominously, giving way to a dimly lit room that smelled of mildew and decay. That's when I saw it, a series of old photographs scattered across a dusty table. I stepped inside, heart racing, trying to make sense of the images. Faces stared back at me, some familiar, some not. Each one seemed to whisper a story I was desperate to hear. I reached for a photograph, but as my fingers brushed the surface, a sharp pain shot through my hand. I pulled back to find a jagged cut. Blood dripped onto the photo, smudging the connection of the past with the present. My pulse quickened, and sudden dread washed over me. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted movement in the shadows. Something was shifting, coming closer. It was time to make another choice. What was I about to uncover? Or worse, what was waiting for me on the other side of the door? The dim light overhead flickered as I edged deeper into the room. My heart raced, and the smell of mildew grew stronger. I was surrounded by shadows, and they felt as if they were closing in. Every instinct told me to run, but curiosity rooted me in place. I glanced back at the door, half expecting the figure to reappear, but it didn't. I was alone. My gaze returned to the photographs. The images seemed to pulse in the low light, drawing me in. I reached for another picture, this one of a woman with dark hair and piercing eyes. There was something unnerving about her smile. As I touched the edge of the photo, a chill swept through the air. My breath quickened, and a voice echoed in the back of my mind, familiar yet distorted. "Help me," it whispered. It sent a shiver through me. Was I imagining it? I stumbled back, eyes darting around the room as the temperature dropped. Shadows flickered against the walls, morphing into ominous shapes. Another noise came from behind me, a soft rustling. My heart raced. Was something alive in here with me? "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. No response. I took a cautious step back toward the door. The pull of those photographs was strong, though. What if I found answers to the questions gnawing at me? I hesitated, torn between fear and the need for knowledge. I turned back to the table and noticed something at the edge of the spread. A small, leather-bound notebook half hidden under the photographs caught my eye. I picked it up and opened it. The pages were filled with frantic handwriting, messages penned in a hurried scrawl. They were jumbled and chaotic. "They know, it's coming for you, the truth will set you free." My palms felt clammy as I flipped to the end of the notebook. Notes scrawled in a tight circle caught my attention. They read, "You are the key," followed by a name, mine. Panic washed over me. How could they know my name? I dropped the notebook, and it landed with a soft thud, but before I could react, the shadows flickered violently as a figure emerged, a silhouette that felt both unsettlingly familiar and terrifyingly unknown. "Help me," the voice whispered again, louder this time. I stepped backward, my breath hitching. And then I recognized it, the voice belonged to the woman in the photograph. I felt an icy grip around my heart. Just as I turned to flee, the door slammed shut. The sound reverberated in my chest, locking me in with whatever had chosen to emerge from the darkness. My instincts took over, adrenaline coursing through me as I searched for a way out, colliding with the table in my escape. The photographs scattered, and suddenly, every face seemed to come alive, each one staring at me with a desperate plea. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the shadows had thickened. I needed to uncover the truth, though dread overshadowed my resolve. I could feel the weight of their eyes upon me, watching, waiting. And then I saw it, a glimmer of light flickering from beneath a heavy curtain in the corner. I was drawn to it, even as the fear gnawed at me. What lay behind it? Whatever it was, I had to find out. Heart pounding, I moved toward the curtain, the whispers in my mind only growing louder. As I reached out to pull it back, I felt a chilling gust of wind rush past me. Then, everything went dark. Suddenly, the darkness fractured. Light pierced through again, soft and warm. I blinked, trying to adjust my vision. I wasn't in the shadowy room anymore. My old hospital room came into focus, the white walls illuminated by harsh fluorescent lights. The realization hit me hard, I was still on my night shift. I rubbed my eyes, confusion swirling around in my mind. Was I imagining things? The whispers faded, replaced by the soft beeping of machines and the distant murmur of nurses conversing in the hallway. This couldn't be real, I had just stepped into something inexplicable. I glanced around, my heart still racing from what felt like a waking nightmare. Everything seemed normal, but a heavy tension hung in the air. The hospital was quiet, too quiet. Usually, there were patients complaining or visitors chatting, but not now. I stepped into the corridor, the floor cold beneath my feet, and noticed the dim lighting flickered in an unsettling rhythm. Am I losing it? I whispered to myself, trying to shake off the fear that gripped me. I made my way toward the nurse's station, hoping to find someone. As I approached, I noticed a stack of charts my own, but dated with last night's shift. The ink looked fresh, yet my memory of that night was clouded. Just then, I heard a sound behind me, a soft shuffle. I turned quickly, but there was nothing. Just a janitor's cart parked at the side, empty and quiet. A sense of wrongness pricked at my skin. I brushed it off and focused on the task ahead. Maybe I needed to check on the patients in my care. As I walked down the hallway, I felt a chill run through me, as if someone was watching. I glanced over my shoulder but saw only the sterile emptiness of the halls. However, as I reached room 306, the door creaked open slightly. Cold air poured out, wrapping around me as I peered inside. The light was on, but the room was empty. The bed was neatly made. Confusion stirred in my gut. I was sure there was a patient in this room last night. "Hello?" I called out, but only silence answered. I stepped in, trying to shake the uneasy feeling. That's when I saw a folded piece of paper lying on the bedside table. Hesitantly, I approached and picked it up. My hands trembled as I opened it. The note read, "Help me," signed with the initial A, the same as the woman from my earlier vision. A wave of panic surged through me. Who was this A? Did she know about the woman from the photographs? I felt a sudden need to retreat, to gather myself, but the faint whisper of help me lingered in my mind. The hallway seemed to pulse with a heavy energy, as if the walls were closing in. Just then, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoing behind me, growing louder. I turned quickly, nothing. My heart pounded in my chest. I needed to get out of this place. I needed to leave. But as I turned to exit room 306, the shadows danced along the wall. The door slammed shut, making me jump. Panicked, I pressed against it, but it wouldn't budge. Then I noticed something move just past the curtain. A shape emerged, and I felt the warmth of breath on my neck. "Help me," the voice whispered again, cutting through the silence like a blade. The whisper echoed in my ears, chilling me to the bone. I backed away from the door, my eyes glued to the curtain. It swayed slightly as if someone was right behind it. My heart raced, and I fought the urge to scream. "I can't help you if I don't know who you are," I shouted, my voice trembling. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. I cautiously took another step back, ready to dart for the door, but the shape moved again, catching my attention. It was just a shadow, shifting in the corner, but it felt alive, pulsing with a dark energy. I blinked, hoping to clear my vision, but it remained. Whoever or whatever was in that room seemed to feed off my fear. "Please, just show yourself," I pressed, desperate for a response. Nothing. The air thickened with an uncomfortable tension. I turned again to the door, trying to push it open despite the sense of hopelessness creeping in. My palms slipped against the cold metal handle. I pulled, but it wouldn't budge. My breath came in short gasps. Suddenly, the light above flickered violently, casting erratic shadows around the small space. Each blink of the fluorescent bulb felt like a countdown. I needed to get out. I needed to find help. In a moment of panic, I lunged for the curtain. I flung it aside, fully expecting to confront whatever was lurking. The space beyond the curtain was empty, just a stark window looking out into the night. And still that voice lingered. "Help me," echoed through my mind, gnawing at my sanity. I glanced back at the door, which still held me captive. I could feel the weight of something pressing against me, urging me to stay. Yet, a fire ignited in my chest. Whatever this was, it was not going to claim me. "Enough of this," I yelled, turning to face the room. That's when I noticed a small item on the floor just outside the foot of the bed. It glinted in the fluorescent light, an old key. My heart skipped. "Is this yours?" I asked, my voice shaking. I picked it up, feeling its cold weight in my hand. In that moment, the shadows coiled tighter around me. A sharp breath escaped me as I approached the door again, clutching the key like a lifeline. "I'm not afraid of you," I declared. I heard the answer, an echo of laughter, cruel and hollow. With a surge of strength, I shoved the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. I twisted it, and the door creaked open, revealing the long corridor beyond. The lights flickered once more, but I didn't hesitate. I darted into the hall, heart racing, expecting a shadow to chase me. The corridor felt impossibly longer, as if it curved into infinity. I pressed onward, determined to find safety. But as I turned the corner, I froze. There, ahead of me, was a figure standing still. She had the same long hair and pale skin as the woman from my earlier vision. "Help me," she said again, her voice barely more than a whisper. I felt dread seep into my bones. Who was she? What did she want from me? I opened my mouth to speak, but the words caught in my throat. The figure pointed down the hallway, toward a darkened room I hadn't noticed before. "In there," she urged, her eyes pleading. Before I could respond, the lights flickered once more and she vanished. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, the cold air swirling around me. The hallway was now empty, but the echo of her voice clung to my mind. In there. What was I supposed to do? I was scared, but something else pushed me forward. Curiosity? Or was it the promise of answers? I took a cautious step toward the room she had pointed to. My heart thumped loudly in my chest, and the weight of the key in my pocket felt heavier with each passing moment. The door loomed ahead, its surface dark and cracked. I reached for the handle, hesitating for just a split second. Would I find the truth, or had my mind simply unraveled? I twisted the handle and pulled. The door creaked open, revealing yet another dimly lit space. I stepped inside slowly, scanning the room. It was small and cluttered, with medical equipment strewn about, collecting dust. In the corner stood a gurney, and on it lay an old, faded blanket. The sight made my stomach churn. I took another step inside, my eyes drawn to the far wall where a series of photographs hung crookedly. They were black and white images of patients, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. I took a step closer, my breath catching. There was something hauntingly familiar about the one in the center. That same pale face. That same long hair. A chill ran down my spine. This was the woman, the one from the corridor. I felt a pull to understand what had happened to her. I moved around the room, examining the photos, and found names written beneath each one. As I read, my heart sank. They were all patients from the hospital, but there were dates scrawled beneath them, dates that matched my current shift. I glanced away from the photos, paranoia creeping in. Had something terrible happened here? Were these patients still here? Suddenly, a noise echoed from behind me. My heart leapt as I whipped around, but there was nothing in the doorway. Just darkness. I took a step back, almost tripping over the gurney. Just breathe, I told myself. Nothing is here. Then I spotted a red file sitting on a nearby table, slightly ajar. My curiosity got the best of me, and I walked over, compelled to know more. It was labeled with a name, Sarah Collins. Flipping it open, I gasped. Inside were notes resembling frantic scrawls, detailing strange symptoms and unexplainable occurrences. The last entry sent shivers down my spine. Patient claims to see someone else in the hallway. Each time, she asks for help. Last seen December 9, 2020. That date felt heavy, like a weight bearing down on me. It was my shift, but it was also, years ago. I barely had time to process this when the lights flickered again, plunging the room into near darkness. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. That was when I heard a soft voice, whispering just over my shoulder, too close. Help me! I spun around in terror, but there was no one there, just the haunting echo of her plea. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, almost knocking over the gurney. My heart raced as I bolted for the door. That was it. I needed to leave. Whatever this was, I couldn't handle it. As I reached for the handle, I froze. The door, once open, was now firmly shut. Whatever presence lurked here had no intention of letting me go. My fingers trembled against the cool metal, and a sense of desperation clung to me like a tattered cloak. And just like that, I realized I wasn't alone. The air grew colder, wrapping around me like a vice. I pressed my body against the door, hoping to will it open with sheer force. Panic set in deeper as my eyes darted around the room. The photographs stared back, their subjects frozen in time, trapped just as I was. I could almost hear them screaming silently for freedom. Then I heard the whisper again, "Help me," louder this time, as if it lingered in the shadows just beyond the room. My heart was pounding, louder than ever. I wanted to scream for help, but the thought of drawing attention to myself when I was already on edge felt foolish. Suddenly, an idea struck me. "The key," I muttered out loud. I reached into my pocket, fumbling for it. My fingers curled around the cold metal. I stared at it, as if it held some sort of magic, some power to change my fate. But what did I even know? Was it the right key? Did I dare try it? Before I could decide, the lights flickered once more, plunging the room into a strobe-like chaos. The shadows danced and stretched, and in that moment, I saw movement, a figure just by the doorway. My breath caught in my throat. Was it the woman from the photos? Heart racing, I called out, "Is someone there?" Nothing. Silence reigned, but I felt it deep down, something was watching. I squinted, trying to make out the shape, but it flickered and vanished. I couldn't stay here any longer. With determination, I rushed to the door. The key shook in my hand. I inserted it into the lock. It felt foreign, as though it had never belonged. I twisted it desperately. Click. I held my breath as I shoved the door. It creaked open an inch, then stopped. I pushed harder, shouldering the door. Slowly, it gave way. As I stepped out, I glanced back. The room felt heavier. The air thickened, and I caught a faint glimpse of movement behind me. There it was again, a flash of that same pale face in the dark. "Help," it whispered again, all too close. I stumbled forward, breathless, and didn't look back. The hallway felt endless, stretching before me like an obsidian tunnel. But I had to keep moving. The thought of being trapped again filled me with dread. My mind raced as I considered my next steps. Could there be a way to uncover what had happened to Sarah Collins? Did she ever find peace? And then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted another door slightly ajar at the end of the hall. This one was different, it blazed with light. I couldn't help it. I was drawn to it, despite my mind screaming for me to run. I knew I had to know. I approached cautiously, dread mixing with a strangling curiosity. As I reached for the handle, a loud crash echoed from behind me, a commotion that jolted my thoughts. Someone, or something, was coming. That was my moment to act. Gripping the handle tight, I yanked the door open. What waited inside was nothing short of an answer I wasn't prepared for. Inside the room, the brightness was blinding compared to the dimness of the hallway. I stepped forward, squinting to adjust to the light. Rows of monitors filled the walls, displaying medical readouts alongside unsettling images of the hospital's layout. Overhead fluorescent bulbs buzzed and flickered. In the center stood a large table, covered with old files, photographs, and equipment I couldn't recognize. "Help!" A voice echoed, but it wasn't just any voice, it was a chorus whispering from every corner of the room, blending into a haunting drone. My heart raced as I moved deeper inside. The rustling papers flew up, swirling around me as if coming alive in a whirlwind. Then I saw her, Sarah Collins, pale and ethereal, a specter suspended in the air, her longing gaze fixed on me. "You shouldn't have come here," she breathed, her voice like a thread trailing off into silence. Why are you here? I asked, my voice trembling, echoing my fear and confusion. I took a step back, anticipating the shadows closing in. I didn't want this, her reply cracked with a sorrow that hung heavy in the air. They want you to know. Before I could question what she meant, the room pulsated. Monitors crackled, and letters on the screens jumped erratically. I focused on one screen that read Patient 076, Protocol Initiated. The number jolted my memory. It was my patient from last night. What is happening? They keep records of us, she continued, her form flickering like the lights. You've become part of their collection. Her gaze grew distant, and I felt a magnetic force trying to drag me into the chaos around her. The whispers intensified, and suddenly, the atmosphere shifted to something darker. Shadows elongated, twisting around me as if to ensnare me. No! I shouted, forcing my feet to stay rooted to the ground. I want to be part of this. Please, Sarah urged, her voice pained. You need to know the truth. I shook my head, fighting against the encroaching shadows that beckoned me deeper into the room. Amid the chaos, I spotted the photographs again, the same haunting faces from earlier. I stepped forward, compelled. Each one seemed to literally transform in front of me, becoming clearer until I realized they bore my name alongside a date, last night. Why me? I gasped, collapsing to my knees as a wave of despair swept over me. I closed my eyes, the whispers a deafening hum. In the stillness that followed, Sarah's voice cut through the noise. You can break the cycle, but you have to confront the choice. The shadows surged forward, colder now. Are you willing? I don't know. I stammered. What choice? The choice to leave or the choice to understand? Frantic, I glanced around, desperate for a sign. The monitors shifted wildly, one blinking free her while another demanded join us. My heart pounded as the noise escalated, the voices now shouting, overlapping until I couldn't distinguish one from another. Make the choice. Sarah's voice rang clear in the chaos. I took a breath. If I had any hope of escape, I needed to face this head-on. I screamed, I will understand. Show me. The words tumbled from my lips. The instant I said it, the room grew eerily silent. Then, a bright flash consumed the room, and I felt myself lifting off the ground. Light enveloped me, and I was pulled into a vortex of images, flashes of faces, each one whispering help me until they all merged, swirling into a tornado of haunting souls, each tethered to this place. Suddenly, the room returned, and I was back by the table, breathless. Sarah stood before me, tears streaming down her cheeks. Now, you must find the way to set us free. In that blur of chaos, a note appeared on the table, glowing against the dimness, a final plea drenched in urgency. The key is in the memories. Free me from this cycle. I hesitated, action and dread warred within me. Would I truly step into the darkness of this mystery? Yet the way was becoming clearer. I understood now the risk I had to take. It was time to uncover the ties that bound this hospital, its patients, and my own fate. Tell me what to do. I shouted, and the shadows fell still, waiting as if the room itself held its breath. But as I delved into my memories, gathered the courage to break through the chaotic veil, the whispers faded into nothingness, or perhaps, they were just waiting. The air thickened with unanswered questions as I faced the enormity of the moment. Part of me hoped to uncover the truth, while another part feared what would be revealed. Even as I stepped forward, a flicker of doubt lingered. What lay ahead? I could not tell if darkness awaited or a revelation that would shift everything I knew. What if I can't? I whispered, needing an answer. Then you will be lost with us, Sarah replied, her glowing figure shimmering with ethereal light. With that, I took a deep breath, feeling both resolute and terrified. It was time to unveil the truth, regardless of the consequences. I moved toward the pulsating light, toward the unknown, stepping forward into a void filled with uncertainty.